starting companion planting and give you guys some tools to plant your garden beds this season. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is just companion planting. That is how Jovial has been teaching people to garden for the last 15 years. Basically, we're recreating little ecosystems. So things in nature, if you think about walking through a forest, you always have like your kind of like grass level and then your shrub level and tree level. And different foods grow naturally in these different levels. And also there's like, things that deter pests or things that help bring nutrients back. So by planting these plants together and creating ecosystems, we can make healthier gardens. We can transition over time to permaculture gardens where the same plants pretty much in the back end of the year and take care of each other. Do a lot of good stuff with it. The first part of that though is just knowing like plant our things. So we've got our whole crops and we've got our warm season crops. Whole crops, I know it sounds always funny because people always think it's cool crops, but they're actually cool. I always think of the stuff that I use to make coleslaws. Like that's the stuff I gotta make right away. I gotta eat my broccoli, my cauliflower, cabbage right in the ground right away. Who can tell me what else this group of plants is called? Broccoli, cabbage.
Brassicas.
Very good. Brassicas or various vegetables a lot.
And then we'll come.
Berries?
Yeah.
Brassica? Brassica? Ask John question.
Brassica.
Where it comes from?
Is it the structure of like genus, family? Brassica is a family name for a bunch of related plants. The brassicas actually originate from mustards, and they split off and they developed broccoli from originally a mustard. They were all closely related. Cauliflower, we just that same family. So brassica is a green. Yeah, and whole actually it comes from the various these similar types of plants, but cool season crops are something a little bit different. It's more broad, like a cherry. The cool season crop is it can withstand frost. There's whole crop here. It's like grass.
I was asking too, like what the root was coming from. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah. So
do we know what that root means?
Just it's mustard.
The mustard. Yeah. Perfect.
I think it's either the first truly, but we put away. It has anyway. There's this like one. It's had root.
It goes deeper. Yeah.
Beginning. Yeah.
And cool.
It's that thing. It's that. Family. And that's the thing too. So if you start on the sheet, like you can plant broccoli, these are the things I want to start going in your head are kind of interchangeable. Like if you can plant broccoli somewhere, you can plant cauliflower there. Like it's gonna probably provide similar nutrients, things like that. You can do broccoli, you can probably do cabbage. Carrots. I mean, really, there's a lot of different things. But if we start learning like these different families, then I think it's really easy when you're like, oh, my host doesn't like broccoli, but maybe they love cauliflower. So things like that, it starts to make you can start planning a little easier when you know your plants and how to switch them up. But yeah, so these we hopefully started some, I think, last couple weeks, which is awesome. And then they're going to go in the ground in April. So these are some of the first things we plant. My water's turned on. Some of my favorite cruciferous vegetables. Brussels sprouts are like my favorite go-to, right? That's another one that people confuse a lot. It's Brussels belonging to sprout, which is really confusing. People think they leave that S, it's a double S, a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they give it to the sprout.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's also a mustard.
Oh yeah. A lot of lettuces are like your cool crops too. That you can plant at the same time, but not necessarily same family. Cool would be lettuce. All right. Then we've got our warm season crops, so we've met these later. We do store some of them early around this time too, like our tomatoes and peppers are warm season, but we expect them early because tomatoes take forever to start making fruit and become harvestable. But the most we plant these a little later, as oftentimes they'll not germinate unless temperatures are 75 or above. So obviously in Colorado we don't get a lot of that outdoors, so this is stuff that you're not going to direct sow as much. So peppers, eggplant, tomatoes. Others can be direct sown. There's a lot of cucumbers, different warm season stuff that you can plant right to the ground. Oh, it broke. Cucumbers. So, warm season crops. So we've got, again, a lot of the. There's a good one. What family is like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants? So those are also pretty interchangeable. Like if you can plant a tomato somewhere, you're getting the right stuff. Usually right there. But also like squash. Squash is a massive family. You all contain some squash. Any squash in your squash though?
Acorns.
Okay. Now, what are the weird things that you don't always think of being in the squash family that are still?
Watermelon.
Watermelon and there's a lot of things. Watermelon is so you might plant that includes watermelon, cucumbers, any of that stuff. All right, so monocropping. Who's heard of like soil erosion problems in Colorado, or where farms are, or like mineral depletion, or I think a lot of people have probably heard that our food has less vitamins and minerals than it used to for various reasons. But I think one of the big sources of that is going to be monocropping. So you're doing just one plant over a whole area, like corn, things like that. It destroys biodiversity, it destroys ecosystems, so we're not teaching people to grow like that, which I think if you went to like more of a traditional farming setting, you might learn a lot of different monocropping and rotating crop practices. We also are going to be doing polycropping, so that's going to make nature. We're going to restore soil quality and increase the biodiversity. A lot of the polycultures do too that I've noticed is you get just tons of vertebrate fungus in your soil, and the plants start to talk to each other and use their roots to share nutrients and stuff. So it's really great to have variety in your gardens.
The same class we were talking about nightshades or better. Or
That was a great question. So we actually do 4 types of guilds, and for each guild I break out. So you kind of want to mix and match. You kind of have some sort of reason for kind of putting your plant there, like how it's going to support the other ones, or maybe it's just your favorite food and you want to grow some things around it that can help support it. But we do 4 types of beds. So we've got the salad bar, southern, Three Sisters, and salsa. They're kind of what you would think. So like your salad bar bed is what you would expect in like a delicious garden salad. The first thing I always think about is like ground cover. Colorado, we get bite like crazy. So I'm always like, what's going to take up a lot of space in my garden? So tomatoes are a great one. They're huge. They take up a ton of space. They shade the ground, so you're not going to get a lot of weeds around them. Squash, most squash, if you think of them, they got those big floppy leaves, so they're going to choke out a lot of the weeds. That's usually like the ground cover ones. You notice are going to be big, meaty things. Rhubarb, zucchini. And then soil fixing. I got a little generous with this category because I want to make sure that we kind of fit everything in. But soil fixing is going to be a lot of the stuff that roots really deep. So a lot of lettuces root pretty deep. Forage, I don't know, there's a lot of different things that are not deep, or even root vegetables that are going to break up the soil and start bringing nutrients back to the top. I think a common misconception in gardening is that like just grow them next to each other and magically these things appear. doesn't really happen like that. So like if we think of legumes, we know they're like a bunch of dust nitrogen fixers. And what happens is like there's a bacteria that grows on the vine. So where you actually get the nutrients in your soil in your garden is at the end of the year when you compost these things back into your garden and feed the soil. So the magic isn't just in planting it, but it's also in like putting them back together at the end of the year. Nitrogen fixers, so really that's going to be your legumes. I always try and put some sort of legume in the garden, but it's also going to help bring that back. Most vegetables, plants are pretty nitrogen heavy. Corn's really potassium heavy too. Like there's a lot of different. Corn is just, I think, the heaviest. Do you think corn's the heaviest feeder on the garden? So that's the one too. Like I definitely never plant corn in the same spot. I try to move it around a lot, and I usually don't even plant corn and tomatoes back to back in the same spot because they're both really heavy feeders. So making sure you're kind of knowing where stuff was last year and moving things around can be really beneficial to your garden too. And then pest deterrents. So I think we've all had aphids in our gardens. Tomato hornworms are a big pest out here in Colorado.
Squash bugs.
Japanese beetles.
Japanese beetles. But yeah, so like different things like onions. If you think this stuff is kind of pumpy smelling, a lot of herbs, onion type stuff can help deter different pests. So we want to make sure we're adding some different herbs and things. Spicy peppers are also great at deterring pests. They don't seem to get nibbled on as much. So I usually try and like surround my sweet peppers with spicy peppers to try and confuse things. Sand arrows that are probably the most common.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good.
This sturgeon's really good. She's gross, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
And bears will kind of keep the vermin away. That's it.
Yeah, they're pretty pungent. I like nasturtium a lot.
Forage. Forage is one of my favorite. I always plant it with tomatoes because it confuses the tomato hornworm. So they'll eat your borage instead of your tomatoes.
It is a perennial. Yeah, so keep in mind.
Yes, forage will take over too. So I always chop the root, move it, pull it out. You gotta kind of keep an eye on it, but it makes delicious flowers that taste just like cucumbers. They're pretty blue flowers, so I think it's really good. A fun plant. Do you guys have any questions on this stuff? Go.
That program, I noticed IDD, when Katie did that math, that real, inclusive math, plants kept growing. Somehow, she had plants right after.
So it's that succession planting.
Yeah.
Perennial plants. It's kind of what you're used to. She's planting some perennials that would come back every year.
Well, no, I mean, all summer long, the plants, it's a business. Yeah, she kept generating.
Yeah, so that's Katie actually studied square foot planting and succession planting at some point, and she's got some really great knowledge on it. But she even one year did the string where you have an exact square foot and you plant your things in there. And there's lots of really neat growing methods. Like if you want to grow 24/7 all year round, it's totally possible to have them. To do that. Yeah.
Just beating my.
Get better, but I ain't that good. These help me out. I keep on them.
And then what makes beans or legumes like they see nitrogen fixers? They just they're not as heavy feeders either.
I don't think they're crazy heavy feeders. And then there's it's like an anaerobic bacteria or something that grows on the vine.
It's super cool. I don't know.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's actually on the plants. So you have to till it back into your garden to get the benefit from it. So if you just pull your,
Especially on the roots. I want to.
is it more the roots? Okay.
It's a root thing. The bacteria make these nodules, little circular, bean-shaped
In the base.
bulbous things in the base, and they work with the plant to take nitrogen out of the soil. So it's really a root based.
So at the end of the year or end of the season, compost those roots and then till it or whatever working on.
Yeah. I just chop it right back in.
Chop it back in. Okay.
Yeah. I try to chop all the things left in the garden like about 2-3 inches, and that'll usually break down by spring. But you can take a spade and just
Like tornado stems, right?
Yeah.
They just don't break down.
I always take the corn stalks out because they're such a pain, but I feel like the chaff I was reading is incredibly beneficial, so it may make sense to kind of chaff the stalks and then also the corn. Yeah. Which makes sense because I mean that corn's pulling all this. It's such a heavy feeder; it's got to go somewhere.
One question for me is these all are, I think, annuals, except we mentioned the perennial. Is there any, like, general, hey, this is a 10-year plan for
Love the grasses. So when we designed this program, we designed it with a horticulturist about 15 years ago, and he had been gardening all over Colorado with like his focus was not pretty gardens by any means, but it was super high yield gardens. I think he was fantastic at it. But his thought on it was you really have to prepare your soil. Like all your success in the garden starts in your soil. And his theory was if you kind of switch to these style beds for 3 years, then you can plant anything permaculture. Like he really wanted to get the soil worked, loosened, and full of good bacteria before he did anything that was going to be more permanent. So he would even say to do like 3 years of vegetable gardening before you plant fruit trees and stuff. You don't obviously have to. You can dig a hole, you can amend it. But there's probably a lot of benefits that if you did something like this first. So he used to teach a lot of methods where you basically just start in one corner of the garden, vegetable garden, move across your yard, and then move behind it with more like permacultured stuff. So I need to put it in here, but one of our favorite permacultures, we usually do strawberry, asparagus, and comfrey, which is just like a killer combo and some of the best asparagus I've ever had. And I tried it 3 times in Colorado in pretty well-established beds, and they just seem to keep going and going. But it's kind of, I think, the big trick. Like if you haven't worked your soil, a lot of what I was reading, it was like after 10 to 15 years, both with like asparagus, I just know specifically the asparagus will start to get smaller and smaller, but the better your soil starts, it'll stay pretty good size for like 25 years. So it's just really like, how much work do you want to do in the beginning for that kind of long term? And asparagus takes like 3 years to really get established and get going anyway, but once it does, man, it's great. And
It was crazy. Like the first year or two, it's like springs up like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Just asparagus. Or mostly
The
asparagus.
print is a strawberry.
yeah, your comfort came in too, yeah.
You guys are comfy too.
I don't have that bed anymore, but there's
There's
a bed out there that has a big concrete plant that will come back every year. Like if it is established. But comfrey specifically is like it's like a native plant, Native American use it for a lot of stuff. Like it's not one that we're itching to not have come back every year. Whereas things like mint or basil which are almost by definition weeds, they just have purposes for us as well.
What is it that?
Not prolific is the asparagus.
Yeah.
It's asparagus, but it's something.
And comfrey is also known as like a green fertilizer, so a lot of people will make like compost tea out of it. The trick I like is you just I just use the hedger and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like the white. It just sounded like
Such a white people thing.
But I like to hedge the comfrey and then just spread the leaves out over my strawberries and asparagus, and it just kind of gives on like a putting the bed to bed at the end of the year kind of an extra insulation. And then it's just great high nutrient mulch. It's also used medicinally in a lot of ways, mostly as like a wound treatment. So like the big floppy leaves, if you ever happen to see one and you're bleeding out wound, you're just wrapping around the wound.
Neat. Only things that make sense.
Yeah, so that's what it looks like.
You will that
Flowers, and the big group of flowers that they want you to see if So okay, so the leaves they're big, long, they almost look like sound ears almost. Oh, that was a good. Yeah, ones. Yeah, and they get really dark green. It's honestly one of those plants where once you see it, once you see it in a garden bed, you'll see little like that all over. It's just around. Yeah, exactly. And you're like, it has so many good uses. Like that's why it's everywhere. Yeah.
That's an excursion.
Yeah, for nasturtiums, I always say they're just lily pads. Yeah, exactly.
And you can dehydrate, like in your dehydrator, Sherman. You can dehydrate the leaves or the flowers, and they're both delicious.
Oh, okay.
Like really great chips, just lightly sea salt them.
We did engineering.
Benson, how do you plant a seed?
She was not sure what she
No.
She said.
But you know, that's not but
Just throw it on top. Alright.
Great, I was second ball.
Correct. So. Yeah. It's together. Something.
So like little tiny lettuce seeds, instead of carrots, I just broadcast those. Mounding, so they just use what used to be mounded.
Squash and beans.
Big plants,
Watermelons.
You know,
most your squash and corn want to be mounded.
Yeah.
There's probably a few others, but I know those are the. And then sowing is when you put the seed in the hole.
so yeah, I would have it needs to be good.
On that note, like, check out the size. Man, there's no size. Well, I don't think people would pass these out. It's not the size of the carrot seeds. You know, they're so small. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Right on the guy. Tomatoes
Like, take a look, take something small.
like online.
You can't do like a little amount. We can broadcast it. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
It's not going.
We're sprinkling.
Handle enough those. Yeah.
Kids with masters in broadcasting. You're in a project in their garden, just one broadcast.
Like shit. Pull everything out. Very well.
That's always going on.
Size matters with seeds. So how deep you put it in the soil is how likely it is to germinate. So bigger seeds can go a little bit deeper. Smaller seeds need to be pretty much right on top. So
Also, the amount of seeds is different. So bigger seeds, you don't need as many seeds. Versus smaller, you need at least 3.
I rule of thumb too, like if you're doing starts like tomatoes, like I usually do 2. You do 3. So yeah, like most of the time do 2 or 3 because there's a good chance one will germinate. And one can always thin. It's easier to thin plants later than it is to not plants. So even when I do squash, I always do 2 of them at a time. Do you do 3?
I need 2 or 2.
So, and again, it's on that size, right? Because that mound is only going to support so much, and those squash plants get huge. This was last year. We kind of broke into groups and I did some seed starts and stuff, so we don't have to worry about that. But I did have some cheat sheets in case you guys wanted to start planting some gardens. So this is for salsa beds. And I'm going to make another one for next year of like what we start and what we do. So like kind of maybe make it shorter. And then, let me see how far I get. My friends are coming in on really mornings. I'm not that bad. They're not very good in the order, so yeah.
I'm gonna use to look it up on the website.
And we can link all these resources to you guys too, so it's no big deal.
Which ones do we? Which three do you want to do, Kristina, this year with our Jovial beds?
So last year we We actually did all 4 last year, so this year I think,
So there's 3 though.
yeah, I think perhaps switch the tomato bed to a southern bed. And then I would think we have the salsa bed in the middle, so we definitely should maybe just do that like salad bar. I would do southern salad bar and the strawberry
Like salsa's a good one.
salsa makes sense.
Is this thing?
Yeah.
Is this
And
thing?
where the southern is.
That's what I was just thinking. Like, there's no way we have this great. Is this from last year? Or? Oh, this is all ready for this year?
The 14th.
The 11th.
That's this year.
I gave you guys
Right, yeah.
but
Sweet.
it's pretty, yeah, it's on some good. It's on the green.
Always have something new every day for Saturday.
Just talk about it, John.
I don't know what they're thinking because that's pretty sad. John, I was talking to
Stuart, you really got everyone's attention.
salsa.
I have a salsa. It's also salsa.
Also, think that
Oh, salsa.
there's only 3.
Yeah, salad.
It's in my face.
I got it for you.
So then you have some more favorites.
And have a picture.
That's the only salsas.
You don't need to do this.
This one, I did do it.
Salsa. You have a 3 sisters in there?
You also have another training and
So we did do something new this year, where every Saturday, we look at one family of plants, because like there's a lot of knowledge that can come from understanding. Oh, what are plants? Okay, we don't know that. It's tomatoes and peppers and nuts and basic stuff. But we can do that for squash. We can do that for
Oh, yeah, this is- yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And what makes this do that, right? Or some people have it on what you gotta see it. Because yeah, it's you don't have some certain things, guys, and things like that. So eventually, I'm gonna.
but we have it up, right? Did you get all the work with that?
Yeah, I'll take on the first stuff.
Okay.
Eventually, like you know, in 2 weeks, you're gonna do ants.
Yeah.
Single fly. So we can like learn more about the family.
One slide, that's not enough to learn.
Yeah, it's nice to keep it up.
Keep it up all day.
Yeah, keep it all day.
I like that.
With these, what I would recommend doing is pick a couple from each, actually, put the chart back up, but put a couple from like each category and kind of just like figure out what you want to plant. So you definitely do not need to, unless you have a huge space, plant all these things at once. But I would plant like 1 or 2 from each category and at least get one of every category in there. And we definitely have those seeds, I know that much. So, but you could like highlight or mark next to it. I can also just share the spreadsheet and you guys could always just add an extra row next to it and like know what you planted 1 year and then if you want to plant those, that's the next. Yeah, so we have grow veg as well, which is really awesome because it tells you all of this companion planting info too as you're working in there planting your gardens.